We now present a lecture by Dr LaiFong Chiu, delivered during the 4th ERBE Seminar event in November 2024 on the topic of Dynamics of the Global Energy System Transition and its Impacts on the Built Environment. LaiFong is a Principal Research Fellow at the UCL Energy Institute, bringing her expertise as a social scientist and combining qualitative and quantitative methodologies to address the critical challenges of climate change and energy security. She has a distinguished background in public health, where she developed innovative intervention and evaluation models, earning national and international recognition. The ERBE Seminar Series provides a platform for discussion and dissemination through themed events, sharing innovative ideas and research in building energy performance. The series is co-organised by the CIBSE Young Energy Performance Group and the ERBE Centre for Doctoral Training to promote critical discussion and collaboration. Previous seminar events have covered topics such as test house monitoring, household readiness for heat pump deployment, and global energy supply logistics for net zero. Please do support the series and attend a future event either online or in person. And without further ado, LaiFong's lecture will begin.
Anyway, thank you for inviting me here. My name is LaiFong, if some of you don't know me. And I'm just following, so I go back a little bit to the title. So this is the real title, really, of my talk. It's a dynamic of global energy system transition and its implication for the UK built environment. Yep, and you have heard what Bob's theory of scarcity and substitution in relation to global energy transition. Now, this part of my talk is about trying to concretizing such an abstract argument around scarcity and substitution in the context of the built environment. I will outline briefly the relationship between, first, mineral and material and energy resources that are undergirding the built environment. Second, the economic activities stem from these transitions. And third, financial capital, and fourth, derivative and financial capital. The third and the fourth, unfortunately, with the limited time that I have, I can't really do very much about giving you any more detail than just a sketch of how it affects particularly the UK building industry. So you have to bear with me. So, but I would sort of go at the interplay of these several layers of the conceptual framework. Back to the future. The presentation of Bob's eminent in 1979 slide, the first impression you would get is what? It's a stage theory. One that is the energy resources replacing the other. Like wood would be replaced by coal, as normally people would thought that is, and eventually will meet and then coal will be replaced by oil and gas. And then we'll meet the target for clean energy, solar and wind on the right-hand side. Okay. How useful is the stage model for conceptualizing transition? Work up till now. So I think it's useful maybe for telling story, wonderful story about Opium War 1 and 2, when the British and the airlines drove down to the Pearl River, that China hasn't actually got any coal driven or steam engine warship. Yeah, so that's why I'm here, because Hong Kong was ceded to the British. So there's some truth in that kind of stage, if you like. The coal was supposed to be the most important resources to stimulate the Industrial Revolution. And then Britain really ruled the wave at that time. Now, but we see in historian Jean-Baptiste Frostow's book, which I will recommend to go out and buy tomorrow straight away, and to read at least the first few chapters. He gathered historical evidence to suggest that energy transition by stage is a misconception. Wood has been used, or more wood has been used from ancient time to now. That was the line that Bob stolen from me, and has been replaced, but it's not have been replaced. It has been continued to support the overall energy development, and it's much, much more, yeah? And you'll see some data support this. Oil, we have seen the use of seed oil for lighting to the discovery of crude oil in mid-1800s. Seed oil has not disappeared. They are used continuously in various parts of the system. For example, used for food and biofuels, you know. And we see people actually buying up, during COVID, buying up loads and loads of vegetable oil and put them in his Mercedes. Now, we want to phase out coal, but from 1850 onward, we have been using coal continuously, although the use of coal started to decline through changes in economic, social, political, for regulation and environmental pressures. It has continued being used in many parts of the world, still using a large number of it, notably in China, India, and in Eastern Europe, like Poland. Recently, maybe you have heard, has reopened its lignite plant, again after the Nord Stream blown up in 2022. Nuclear made its way in the 1950s. The use of uranium as a fuel has continued. There is a debate whether nuclear power should be part of the clean energy mix, and the advance of a small modular reactor may be a solution for more distributed energy system. So for me, I think, rather than energy transition is a replacement of one source by another, there seem to be a symbiotic process going on as human energy resources develop through the ages. Okay, that's Bob's. I'm going to steal your slide now. Bob's slide here presents a very abstract concept where fossil is in decline and renewable are inclined to replace it. The meeting of these incline and declines is around the inflection point. Bob said something around, is it 2030? Is that possible? Now, this graph, though simple, is very powerful. Yeah, because sometimes simplicity is a very powerful tool, but it's packed full of information with a lot of processes. Constraint and opportunity need to be unpacked, and I will going to unpack this gap in the next few slides. Yeah. Okay, let's introduce you to somebody really important in energy transition. You may or may not heard of him. Anybody heard of Václav Smil? One person only. Need to be more, right? If you're interested in the next several decades. Václav Smil is a professor of distinguished professor who has written more than 40 books on energy, material, and energy transition. His main argument is that there are 4 fundamental materials that make up the modern civilization. Here is steel, ammonia, cement, and plastics. And energy is required to produce this material. And I'm sure everybody knows how cement is produced. Without this material, modern civilization simply will collapse. Modern civilization, yeah, I don't mean the nomadic civilization. Maybe there's some hope in that. So let's look at the built environment. How to curate a built environment. I know most of you actually work on buildings, but I think to be fair, if you really want to any transition in the built environment, you have to look at it this way. The built environment should include not only types of building, but also system of infrastructure that support them. In cities, large panels of precast concrete system are used to create office blocks, as you see over there, and high-rise flats, changing the skyline of our cities. Reinforced concrete is now inside every large modern building and every transportation infrastructure from port piers, tunnels, to roads and runways. So you see, you need that infrastructure system to support the buildings. So quite often, we seem to neglect that. That's really part of the system of your built environment. Maybe some of you don't, so I will apologize for that. Okay, this is a long, old photograph. Bob and I visited Rome. The example of the role of concrete in civilization, you only need to take a look at the Pantheon in Rome to see the concrete has been used since then. And what is concrete? Concrete, most of you probably know, is a mixture of sand, small stone, water, and cement. Cement is a key ingredient that makes concrete special. Heard of Portland cement is the most common form, 3 part limestone to 1 part clay, which has been heated to around 1500 degrees centigrade and then ground down to a powder. 1500 degrees centigrade, so that's really energy intensive. Indeed, in my early days in England, I actually worked for a civil engineering company, so I was dealing with ready-made concrete, the firm. So I'm not sort of that unfamiliar with concrete and not just only getting it from the book. I used to work with a civil engineering company. The production of 1 cubic meter of concrete required 2,775 megajoule of energy. Coal, petcoke, and electricity are the dominant energy sources used in cement plants. Concrete is the most widely used manufactured material on the planet. It has shaped so much of our built environment, but it comes at a massive environmental cost. We use over 4 billion tons of concrete globally every year. Cement production alone generates around 2.5 billion tons of carbon dioxide, about 8% of the global total. Okay, that's my framework, yeah? To understand the energy transition, you have to look at it in a context, or these several contexts. We need to understand the relationship between the material and socio-technical and economic and financial layers. So I put the material and minerals right under there because I think it's foundational. Yeah, without that, we better go to Mars, perhaps. And the economic activity is stemmed from it. But it's actually most important now in modern day, the 2 other layers, the financial capital 1, I call it M1, derivative financial capital M2, some people call it M3, are most important at the moment, driving energy transition. Yeah, they are. These financial systems drive energy transition. Believe me, you need to pay attention to that. So due to the limited time, I will only focus on the UK built environment and sketch out some of the content of this layer that implicate in energy transition. Let's start by looking at the physical and material base of what are needed in the transition in terms of building net zero homes or buildings, infrastructures. Building-wise, we can talk about retrofitting. Yeah, I think you probably got blocked out there, but I should read it to you. We can also talk about retrofit and new build. They more or less need the same material. As you know that, retrofit, you need steel, tube, concrete, glass, plasterboard, insulation, new building services, heat pumps, PV, new build need all the above, plus the infrastructure. If anybody see a big development like in London, they actually come with infrastructure, like for example in Woolwich or Greenwich. When Woolwich want to build Barclays, is it Barclays? Barclays want to build this big development there. They asked the council for land. They had to promise, to support the building of the Elizabeth line. So the infrastructure is very, very important for the built environment. And also, if you look at over the side, if you actually have this infrastructure building, you need to strengthen the grid. You've got more houses, you've got the infrastructure. The grid will require, when you start digging up the road, replacing the cable, you require roads construction, network of cables, pylons, and substations. Particularly in increasingly what we call that we want distributed energy system, a PV farm here, wind farm over there, then we probably need a lot of restructuring. That's what Bob was talking about, energy system architecture. So that's why we are interested in the development of system architecture in the future. And solar and wind generation, what about supply chains of PV panels, thermal solar, and the market economy? Okay, before that, I move on to that. Let's dig a little deeper. We need to understand how important fossil in our everyday life, yeah? On the right, we can see crude oil is refined to produce product that we use every day, from butane, gasoline jet, if we want to go on our holiday, or you want to go home, some of you, diesel and fuel oil, to bitumen, asphalt, paraffin wax, plastics. Plastic specifically is oil product. Is embedded in most equipment you can find in hospitals and clinics. And you know your rails, your pharmacy, factory, all the, well, you can see it here. It's all from oil, right? On the right, you can see how ironic that Just Stop Oil activists use paint, which is a product of oil, to damage a valuable painting of Van Gogh hung in a museum. And these are symbols and representation of Western civilizations. Yeah? I might be apathetic about it, but if you love Van Gogh, yeah, it's history. And Van Gogh is a product of accumulation of the Western civilization. Yeah? And the museum, the building, the museum, again. And to throw paint in the painting, the paint come out of oil. Okay, that's how ironic that is. PV heat pumps are make a special sand. Let's see if, yeah, so let's I got this. Let's take a little bit deeper. Yeah, looking at this slide and wider. As we're here, we can see here, we need JCB. Can you see that? And which one should press? Yeah, can you see that? Yeah, make of steel, rubberized wire for electric and hydraulic scoops. The concrete pour onto the foundation. Okay, and for walls as well as floors. Even the cranes are made of steel. So here, all the cranes there. Remember? Here, yeah, there, yeah. So heat pumps. So sorry, I haven't finished with that. Wood, yeah, going back, the wood. More and more wood are being used in building sites, yeah? And some of the usual things you see use of wood these days are pallets and transporting building material to and from sites, okay? And food, transport from pallets. So therefore, Bob is absolutely right. More and more wood are being used. It hasn't gone away, but it's just not used for fuel. But there are pallets used for fuel and so-called biofuel in somebody else's, maybe Marks and Spencer's boiler. I'm not telling you, may not be a secret now. The expansion of the grid would involve many wires and steel. And if we are to install AI to monitor and control the increasing intermittent supply of distributed electricity, more material will be used across the system. And the augmentation of electronic in future smart grid will involve, let me just flip the page, an increasing number of data centers. Yeah, you see that? Around the country. And more energy will be required for processing this data. Perhaps you already know that Microsoft is considering acquiring 3 Mile Island. Anybody heard of that? And Amazon is building a small nuclear reactor next to their data center. All the above indicate a whole host of economic activities, right? This layer, yeah? Trading, transport and travel, airport and seaport, etc. And services management, your people collecting your rent, and management administration center, as well as universities. Yeah? These are all can be found in London and some in other big cities. Okay, This slide tells how economic activity change over time. These changes implicate the acquisition of a variety of materials, mineral and products. We have been transitioning for quite some time now, not just the last couple of decades. From 1990s, I would say even from 70. Look, usually you find data always from 1990, but you can actually go right back to 1970s, which I had a slide when I was doing system shock. And I would say in the 70s, UK has already been deindustrialized. When Sheffield no longer produced steels or silverware, perhaps the recent closure of the Tarsus steel has completed this process. Construction has changed much since, haven't changed, as you see, in construction machines haven't really changed very much, even now. But manufacturing decline, sorry, you can't see the points here. Can you see it diverge? Yeah? That is services. Unfortunately, it covers up the services here and construction and manufacturing. Can you see this? Minus, manufacturing come down minus 8 point. Service increase to 10 point. Yeah? It's a big gap. Okay. This picture shows decisively UK economic activities are service-based. Yeah? No doubt about it. If not, go on. Okay. In order to see economic activity and the health or something to do with the health of the economy, you have to see the export and import. And there's always a lot of myths about, well, everything is come from China or whatever. Okay, I'm going to show you what the export and import to and from China is about. It's a bit difficult to see from here. But you can see on the top of the list, China exports to the United Kingdom around 16.87 billion. This electronic equipment, something like this we're using. And, United Kingdom exporting pearls, precious stones, metal, and coins. And the interesting thing here also about China is exporting to United Kingdom machinery, nuclear reactors, and boilers. But they do the same. Now, what's going on here? For the third item here. Yeah? Well, what happens is that quite often products as such, it's going to travel around the world. Yeah? So come here, go there. That maybe really, like Bosch. Bosch actually have factory in China. Okay? So again, you can see furniture, lighting signs, and prefabricated buildings is exported to us, yeah? And we export pharmaceutical products to China. Now, people might say that, why? Because we have a, reasonable pharmaceutical industry. Go on and go on. And here, plastic, they're coming back to us. But recently I discovered most of the waste plastic are actually sent to Hong Kong. And it was just being left in the wasteland and not processed. So there's a lot of things going on here. Well, if I leave you, but you can see this number is 81.2 billion. Yeah, coming in. We're exporting 33.4 out to China as a pattern. So what do we see here? What do we mean by actually looking at this situation? Yeah. So why do this matter? Because anybody can tell me why do this matter? This is very simple, actually. Somebody who read, why export, import, export, such a difference? There is a trade imbalance here. So why trade imbalance is important. So going back to Smith's fundamental material, I want to actually make it even more vivid to you. It's by looking at the trade side on timber, wood. UK is trading with actually many partners here, not just China. But with timber, we import timber from China, Germany, Sweden, and United States, as well as Finland. And there are also 181 partners here. So if you go to this site, you can play around with this. Yeah. And metals. Oh, no, not yet. Sorry. It's glass and stone. So UK partner from Canada, United States, Kazakhstan, Switzerland, and South Africa. Metal, okay, very important building material. It's important also from China, Germany, Italy, Turkey, and United States. In fact, United States is our biggest trading partner. Isn't that why we always want to follow what the United States said? Yeah, without the United States, we are up the country. So this slide sums up the UK's, the import-export of construction material, which you can find on the web. It's a government publication. It shows the two times the import over export, and obvious imbalance of trade. And also note here, electrical wire, very similar, yeah? What does it mean, really? But this is interesting, builder ironmonger. Looks like we no longer produce builder ironmonger. And we actually imported a Swedish boiler, stove, and it couldn't arrive to our house for 6 months because the stove required the hinges from China. So although it's Swedish made, but component has to come from other places. Okay. Anything else that I want to say? Yeah. The recent inflation in the construction industry just after COVID and the Ukraine war has indicated how vulnerable the UK economy is. It looks like there is a sign of stagnation here. Look, that is where the COVID here dropped down here. And then when COVID finished, 2021, shot up. But there are slight supply chain problems. They continue because the supply chain problem doesn't actually make it make demand reduce demand. It actually make prices high. Yeah, so there's an inflation problem here. And now the construction industry is contracting, coming down here. So we are maybe facing a stagnation, if not recession. But why inflation matters? The cause of the imbalance of trade, let's see, that is slide 20. Let you digest this. Look at this. Yeah, real estate. The cause of imbalance of trade in the construction that could have been affected by the overall shape of the economic structure of the UK. It shows you what the shape is. See? Anybody know what real estate here? 13.1% of your GVA is basically GDP without tax and subsidies. So you can take it as GDP. It's pretty high, isn't it? And manufacturing, on the other hand, is only 9%. I think it's around here. Manufacturing somewhere. Really easy to see down here. You'll find that it's only, 9% is third here. Yeah. But when you look at built environment, as I said, how you curate the built environment, you're not just looking at buildings, you look at all the other stuff associated with building as well. So it's a pretty big chunk of our GDP or GVA. Okay. So UK, if you look at that, we don't even mine anything. Agriculture is so little, where our food rely a lot on import. And, you know, yeah, I would say something up. UK doesn't make much of anything, really. So this is what the Bank of England summary about the business condition of the construction industry. It's I'm not reading all of it, I'll summarize it for you. It basically says construction output volume is falling, orders continue to decrease, a slowdown of activity across both private and public sectors. The commercial building sector continued to slow and likely to contract further in 2025, while large infrastructure projects appear to be an area of strength, with energy, water, and defense contract growing. It got to be a key part. However, the constraint of this sector are utility connections. Again, go back to the grid stuff. Wind farm, plugging in the wind farm or PV farm, or indeed, where you connect the source of electricity or fuel. So basically, the one sentence is the growing evidence of construction firms are failing. Yeah, not much going on. Okay, with the economic construction downturn, you might be forgiven to think that the retrofit activity could be a way to stimulate growth in the construction sector. The government would need some basis upon which certain policy decisions could be made. For example, now warm home or green deals, basically a form of government subsidies. CAR is Cambridge with architectural research was commissioned to update the cost assumption of base energy efficiency modeling, which you all use, most of you. They found that it's difficult to estimate the material of building services that are implicated in retrofit due to the topology variation. Because of the variation, also the variation specific according to each dwelling, it's difficult to put on the estimation of installation costs. And most of you, you attend our socio-technical module, you would have seen, one of the examples is about retrofit, yeah, the retrofit for future project. And you can see how individual each dwellings are. And it's very difficult to make it work sometimes. As I suggested earlier in this presentation, I will not be able to give a detailed account of the financial sectors, how they influence in the built environment today. But this sector play an important role in capital investments. The growth of derivative products, the outer layer, even more derivative product now, a major area of growth for the more services-oriented economic activity in the building industry. One of the examples is the advance towards the ubiquitous green finance movement. Everybody heard of green finance? Blimey, it's going to be really important in the next decade. These two articles I dig up is opposite each other. This is actually written by RIBA Commissioner of Sociology to write that, and it's quite critical. But this one is by, I think, World Business Council. Bioenvironment. So this is all very positive. So we got to read both sides, I think. Yeah. So I can't go on to it, but finance is really important, please. Please pay attention to it. So you can see, I think, with this brief talk, there's a dynamic here, and the system is multi-layer and complex. And it's related. I mean, if you can't actually invest in mining, you can't actually get things out. Yeah, you can't have whatever stuff that you want to make. But you have to import, obviously, somewhere else, or go somewhere to find them in Africa or Russia or Ukraine, whatever. Let's move on. Everybody familiar with this graph? If you're not, you ought to be. If you're interested in your country, this country, and any country, It's from Welling data. I checked, it haven't changed very much. Although UK is very proud of its progress in green energy, that we have nearly 45% electricity supplied by renewable. BASE always said that, but they measure what? They measure the best day in April. Yeah, some days are not that wonderful. And you can see here, the whole world is only about 14%. This slide tells us we have a long way to go. So sorry, Bob, your little stick of blue, maybe a little bit shorter. This slide, and then far from replacing fossil have been increased all the time as population increase and different countries started to develop. They need these things to build their infrastructure, yeah, all over the world, particularly developing country. They obviously, these things, play a large part of our lives still. So, does the stage theory of energy transition hold water? Yeah? Does it go one replacing the other? I'll let you to think about it. I'm not giving you an answer. I'm just saying, laying out some pointers for you to consider. But as research student, research is about questioning. If we accept built environment is deeply entangled with both material and non-material reality, what option does the UK have, given that it is not self-sufficient in material and mineral for a transition? We said, well, we've got to build more battery. Where the battery going to come from? If we accept a healthy economy is an economy with balanced trade, how can a nation with national debt to GDP ratio of 98%? In fact, they just massaged the figure. It was about 100%, but hopefully they want to make it lower down and increasing taxes so it balance the sheets, you know. Is a stage model of energy transition helpful, given that we still need fossil fuels and mineral to make stuff for transition? We're focusing solely on carbon and carbon emission to contribute for tackling the complex predicament that we face. I'm not saying that climate change is not happening, not saying whatever, but as according to some theory, peak oil theory or peak cheap oil theory, that we are in a decline of fossil fuel. We might run out of it before we build our own raft to crossing that river. I always lecture, always talk with a fun slide. This is our mystery slide for you today. Can you see that? British economy is highly London-centric. What does it mean? Finance, like Wall Street. The city of London, that square mile, is very rich. In fact, one of the Daily Express newspaper, I looked on the train, pleaded the City of London do more for these little places down here. So if our economy take away City of London, GDP, we are, these places, just as poor as Mississippi. All right? So I leave you to think about this and to see why we get to where we are and how our research agenda could be expanded to include some of these interesting questions, yeah, or I call socio-technical questions. And it's not easy, but it's very rich. And you have 25, 30 years of research agenda here. So I finished.